actually earlier on, the key moment was a flurry of moves that both players had calculated in advance, and these moves were dropped on the board at the speed of light. And wow, Artemiev, he will be looking back at this position and regretting his decision. Here, he sacrificed the knight. He played knight takes pawn. This was unnecessary. There were plenty of safe moves in the position. Everything else was pretty balanced. He gave up his knight. The black pawn recaptured, and now, after the white rook captured a pawn in the center of the board, maybe Artemiev thought he was winning something back. He's attacking the black bishop, and there's a lot of pressure here. There's a pressure with the rooks. A lot is happening. Black, however, Aronian, he spotted this very quickly. He just moved that bishop that was under fire, and after we saw white's rook capturing a knight, black's rook recapturing so many trades, a check, a dodge, a recapture, and then suddenly this skewer, and this maybe was what Artemiev had missed in advance. Suddenly black hitting the rook and the bishop behind it. This meant that white had to give up a rook for a bishop, and eventually he wasn't able to save the game. Yeah, there's just one moment I want to highlight because it showed Levon Aronian's power and all of his strengths in a nutshell in this one move. And we saw him actually just a couple of moments ago sacrifice a piece. He backed that up. He justified it by giving even more material, throwing extra wood on the fire. He played rook takes knight, eliminating black's best defender. That knight was holding everything together, and after the pawn recaptured, the white pawn stepped forward with a fork, attacking the queen, attacking the knight at the same time, and after the black queen moved, he didn't even want this knight. Instead, he introduced the white queen into the attack, the white queen stepping forward and threatening to come up the board. The white queen and bishops together were enough to threaten the black king and cause all sorts of mayhem. Aronian never gave Artemiev a chance to fight back in this one. Actually, there was one key moment that I think Magnus had missed looking forward into this position. He'd sacrificed a pawn temporarily. Black has gone a pawn up. This one as well, a very important pawn. We saw actually later that was the one winning the game when it started to march down the board. But Magnus thought he could win that pawn back. He traded a set of rooks here, and after the queen recaptured, suddenly it dawned on him. He realized if he takes this pawn with his bishop, there's a big problem. Black will actually trap this bishop and force a trade. Black will step his bishop back, saying, okay, where are you going to go with this guy? There's nothing else to do, actually, other than trade. But after bishop takes bishop, black will not recapture with his queen. He'll recapture with his pawn, suddenly creating a nasty pass pawn. And actually, it's impossible to stop that pawn from running down the board. Magnus underestimating the power of all of Ding's pawns in this game, and because he wasn't able to capture it in this position, because he wasn't able to take this pawn, it lived and it decided eventually. Magnus failing there to defend in the correct manner. Maybe just to show the final position, just to explain why Magnus Carlsen resigned. There will be some very confused viewers at home. Right now, white is actually attacking this central pawn with his knight and his rook. It's not easy to defend it. For example, if you bring your rook across as black, this rook is simply going to get hit and kicked away. And white will, next move, once the rook moves, win that pawn. So that's why Magnus resigned. He realized he's about to go down a pawn, but if he'd played on, if he wanted to make a draw, he could have done. He could have just, for example, fixed the pawns on this side of the board, and after going down a pawn, just trading these off, he could say to Magnus, he could say to Ding, "Yep, I'm going to go after your central pawn. I'm going to force you to create this weakness in the middle of the board." White stepping forward, and now the black king could start to go active. The black rook will always hit this pawn. It's 5 versus 4 in terms of pawns, but black should be able to make the draw with best play. Magnus, however, he didn't want to be stuck there, losing energy, defending a difficult position. He just thought, okay, time for tie breaks. A draw is the best case scenario anyway. And yeah, there we go. Blitz games are imminent. So I just want to show the closing stages of this game, the grand finale of it, because Magnus, with some fantastic queen maneuvers, did break the black defenses. And it did start a few moves before this, with the white queen finding the square. But this final move with the white queen is the real clincher. The queen steps up, lining herself up on this diagonal with the black king. And actually, that's the diagonal that later led to an eventual checkmate. Black's rook tried to bring itself across. White brought the queen to an even more active square, attacking the black knight. The black queen came across, and a couple of moves later, we did see, after white's knight jumping forward, the black knight stepping back out of an attack. This was a discovered check. The white queen hitting the black king forced to retreat, and now look at this. All of white's pieces in the attack, the rook, the knight, the queen. One last piece is needed. One piece is doing nothing. So why not improve this bishop? Magnus brought this bishop to the same diagonal as the white queen, bit of teamwork here, and next move, the white queen is going to step up to this square and trap the black king. It's pretty much unstoppable. Black could give up a rook to stop it, but checkmate imminent on the next turn. Ding resigned. Maybe again, just to show the key moment right at the end there, we did see white go on the attack with his queen, bringing his queen forward, attacking a pawn, and our instinct, Jovanka, was to defend this pawn. It looks deadly. It looks suicidal to allow the white queen to capture that pawn, but Magnus said, no, actually, I have enough time to go on the counterattack. Sometimes the counterattack, the best form of defense. The black queen joined the action here, threatening her own pawn, and after white's queen captured, the black king actually could fend for itself. And we did see a bit later on, white unable to deal with this type of attack, therefore he had to give a check and another check. And in a similar position, the position repeated itself 3 times. Nothing else for Ding to do other than to go for the draw.